if you could talk about the similarities and differences among product management, project management, and even throwing in their strategy, and what type of candidates should be looking at each of these positions in terms of fit.
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I work with all of those roles and have at both Google and at Verily in my time there. I think all of these roles at Google and Verily, we tend to call what I think many people think of as project management. We'll say program managers. I think program management, product management, technical product management, strategy, these attract very similar folks, right? They're scrappy folks. They have that ownership mentality that I've talked about. And most of you're all here you want the company to succeed. You might bring slightly different backgrounds to the role, but I think you bring the same attitude. So they're similar roles. I think product management is often responsible for the priorities of what we build and really deeply understanding the users and the business. And project management and program management can often be more responsible for coordinating, organizing, creating the processes, setting up the operations to be effective. So that can be a common divide, though because they're similar people and with similar perspectives, the roles can bleed. And if somebody's strong in one area, they can pick up more responsibilities and vice versa. The technical project management role is often somebody who has that deeper technical background and can really spend the time to roll up their sleeves, sit down with an engineering team or a science team and come up with what are the bug lists, right? Really getting into the nitty-gritty of execution. But again, people with that skill set often can also do other things up in the product management area. So I'd say they're similar but different, and they're distinct in that often companies hire people for these roles because, you know, I need a product manager to own this business for me and figure out what to do. I need a project manager because this is a complex business with a number of partners and I need to make sure that all of the things happen at the right time. So often you're somebody in that role who can do other roles as well. And it's good to remember, like, I'm here to do this job for the company. I might want to shift jobs over time, and there's room for that. But it's also important to just, you know, understand the role you're playing at any time. I'll say on the strategy side, at Google, in my experience as a product manager, we had relatively less involvement with strategy. Product management did more of that work. And we might reach out to a central strategy team on occasion when we needed help with something specific, say, figure out how to price a product or something more like that. In my experience in healthcare, strategy became ever more important because there's so much going on. As you know, this is a very complex industry. You know, what's going on with reimbursement? How is the ecosystem changing? Who are the players? And that's an area where it's a full-time job just to understand that and digest it and guide teams. And so I wound up having much stronger interactions with our strategy team from the product management side in my healthcare experience. So that's something I'll say about strategy. The other thing that I will say is I often run into people who have held multiple of these roles over time. Again, because they attract similar people with similar mindsets. You might be a product manager at one company and a program manager at another, and then a strategy person at another. And you're capable of all of those roles, and it might be that you're more inclined towards one of them, or that the project you were interested in had an opening in this area. So again, I see some flexibility here, and I can speak more about this later.
So real quick, having said that, I mean, you mentioned going back to the strategy team for feedback. So then even though the product manager owns the product, in a way that product idea still comes from strategy?
I think I would describe strategy as more of a support role in my experience, or it's not a phrasing I like, but a throat to choke, right? Who's responsible? Where does the buck stop with what you do and how you advocate for, here's what we should build, synthesizing all of the input? That's usually on the product management team's plate. That said, as you know, for any big decisions, you'll do this with the, you know, decisions are made by leadership. you have multiple stakeholders at the table, and strategy is a stakeholder. You know, operational leaders are stakeholders. So product management might be responsible for synthesizing and presenting the path that you think you should go down based upon the inputs from these other team members. You know, but it becomes a discussion, as these things often are. The other thing that I'll say about program management, or project management, I think I spoke to this earlier. In my time at Google, and from my experience talking to other technology industry PMs, whether it's startups or Amazon or Facebook, I think that it's more common that there is not a project manager or program manager on a team. Usually the product manager and the tech lead, right, the lead engineer, they share that responsibility, and depending on their natural inclinations and how the team runs, it might lend one way or the other. I have been on larger teams where we have project management, and usually it's teams where the complexity is building up. So if you think about what does it take to ship a new release of an Android software platform, right? There are program managers who make that ship run, and in the absence of them, there would be chaos. So I think that really is how the role that they serve and how do they function. That we bring this massive team together on a probably, if you add up the number of human hours that go into it, like moon landing size projects, maybe not quite that large, but up at the larger end of complexity. In my experience, more teams in healthcare need this, because even a smaller idea in healthcare is a complex idea. There's nothing easy about what we do here. And so program management becomes a critical and important part of the team.